Today on the Magic for Life podcast, we have Andy Langberg. Andy is the founder and developer of Reactivation. He has reactivated numerous professional sports teams, including the New York Giants, the Brooklyn Nets, and the New Jersey Devils. The reactivation method is a revolutionary approach that can help get your body back in sync with nature and in the best possible position to heal itself. I can't wait to share with you one of my favorite people. Let's cue the intro and we'll jump right in. I've spent the last 20 years studying, teaching, and coaching people to find their greatness and take their lives to the next level. Along the way, it's become evident that emotions are at the root of everybody's successes and failures. Worry and fear are the enemies, and it's time to forge the armor and earn the tools to overcome the two things that could single-handedly destroy your future. Hi, my name is Michael Johnson, and I'm a life coach, a peak performance trainer, and I'm the emotions guy. It's time to take back control of how you feel, control of how you act, and control of how you experience life. It's time to become a lifer, a new breed of overachiever focused on living every minute to its fullest. We are responsible for how we feel, and no one and no thing can make us feel anything. Emotional mastery is our journey, and emotional education and intelligence is the key. We are lifers, and this is Magic for Life. What's up, lifers? Michael Johnson here with the Magic for Life podcast, and I'm excited that you joined me today because we have a very, very special guest, Andy Langberg. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, it's great to be here in my office in New Jersey.
Yeah, exactly. It's awesome.
Live with you.
That we could do this now. I love the whole Zoom thing. It's amazing because I can connect with people all over the world. And it's great to have you here. I did, I forgot to tell you when we started, I did an intro. So they already kind of heard a little bit about you prior to starting. So, but we'll jump in and you work on people and you do some amazing things. I can tell you before we jump in and this is sort of like a pre-testimonial, right? Like I went through probably 4 years of college and probably another 3 years of my professional career in dance in massive pain. Like literally every time I took a step, I just thought I had to live with it. I thought I had to make it work, just absolutely in pain. The doctors couldn't tell me anything. All they wanted to do is cut me open and figure out what was wrong afterwards. And I found Andy, and he changed my world. And after that, I have literally not been in pain ever since, which is like amazing. He's worked on my wife, he's worked on my friends, and he's worked on so many people and changed their lives. And I'm so honored and privileged to have you here today so we can talk about it and tell people about it and tell people about how you got to this point, because you're pretty cool.
I think it's better, Michael. I'm just gonna sit here and nod my head and let you talk about me.
Okay. I'll try to do it as much as I can.
I don't get this kind of stuff at home. This is cool.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Well, Andy, tell me a little bit more. We're going to jump into your backstory in a second, but tell me a little bit more about what you do so that people can start to get an idea.
What I do. So I gave it a name because everything needs a name these days. And I didn't want to make this like a technique, like the Andy Langberg technique. I didn't want to make this about me.
Right.
Because it's really not. I developed a bunch of theories probably about 18 years ago. And I'm a very skeptical guy, and I've been trying to disprove them ever since, and I can't. So at the beginning stages of this, I decided that I needed to give this sort of a name, because that's what people do if you're going to try to maybe create a business out of something, especially something that no one really understands or has ever heard of. So one day, as a lot of brilliant ideas come from, I created this name, Reactivation, in the shower. And I said, you know what, that's what I'm going to call it. And that was about 18 years ago, and we've been doing it ever since. So yeah. It is I guess a form of body work. I guess there's really no other classification to put it under.
Right.
So it is a vibrational technique, I call it, where everything is based on my energy, my vibration, my waves going into that client or whoever has given me permission to enter their body in a way energetically. And it's sort of a two-part system. I've developed the first part as a way to talk to a body, which sounds really crazy, but I can find out exactly where your dysfunctions, energetic dysfunctions, are. And when I find them, I can correct them instantly.
Wow. It's
So again, I always say, like, I don't like to say I treat anything specifically.
sure.
I just know that if I get bodies to work better, then they heal on their own. And a lot of times it happens pretty instantaneous,
Yeah.
which is really fun.
Yeah. Well, and I remember the first time I had met you and had you work with me, it was like we got done and I was just blown away because I'd lived with it for so long, and almost like it was that weird feeling of like I felt like I was almost making it hurt even though it wasn't hurting because I had remembered
Yeah.
it so well. And I said, well, when should I see you again? You said, well, do you have to? And I was
Such a
like,
bad business model. Gosh, it's such a bad business. Terrible,
it's a
right? You just get
horrible
them better, they
business
don't come
model.
back.
I know, I know. And, I think you saw me one more time just to help me fix up other things that were going on. And it was sort of just a, side note, but I've been, my body's been great ever since. Um, and like I said, you've worked on other people like my wife, and it's, I, I don't even have the words for it. We included a link for your TED talk that you did in the description, so you guys should check that out after you listen to this whole
Yeah,
podcast.
and then there should be somewhat of a little bit of a disclaimer there.
Yeah,
TED Talks have you sort of sign off that you won't discuss anything scientific unless you can prove it
sure,
with published papers, double-blind studies. And I don't have that in a way. And we've gone down that road where I thought I was going to maybe start to publish and start to do these trials. And it's really quite a hassle to get
yeah,
like a hospital IRB board, like
oh yeah,
those to do all the work and create. And in a weird way, I don't need it.
yeah,
And I got to the point in my life where I don't really care. Like, I'm not really trying to prove myself anymore
yeah,
with this work. I don't go into every session saying, oh, if I just got to get this person better, my business will grow. And if I have to get results today, it's so important. At this point, I'm so confident and I trust the work. And I 35,000 clients later, I know it works.
yeah,
If someone, I got asked actually this morning, I had a long conversation with a woman who's, I think she's 76, and she's got all kinds of problems. And she drilled me on the phone for probably about 25 minutes, question after question. And at the end of the day, like, I just kept telling her, I'm not treating your problems in a way. I'm just going to get your body to work. And she said to me, well, does your stuff ever not work? And it's actually a great question, because
yeah,
the answer to that is, I would say no. And I say that when people say, oh, it didn't work for me. And I've had people say, oh, it didn't work for me. Well, you've had 37 years of neck pain, and you think I was going to fix it in 1 hour?
right,
And the problem is that two of their friends got so-called fixed in 1 hour.
right, right.
And they were told, oh, just give him 1 hour, he'll fix you, which is a really like challenge. Not many people, I say, if you can find someone, if I could fix everyone in 1 hour, I'd have a line from here to Utah.
Yeah,
But there are cases, a lot of cases, where I can get very good results in 1 hour. And I treat every session like, I want to correct your problems in this hour and get your body in the position to heal.
yeah.
Sometimes it takes me a few. That's what I tell people. So we'll
It's,
do our best.
yeah, and it's, I I I am always at a lack for words. So when people ask me what you do, and I try to say, well, I know your bio and I know how to read what you've said about reactivation. And reactivation is such a great name. I mean, obviously you came up with it in the shower. That's the best place to come up with names and ideas ever, right? But
That's what I hear.
it's but I really am at a lack for words because you don't even, I don't know.
No, so I didn't answer. I started to go down that road, and I didn't really finish
Yeah, go
the
ahead.
answer to the question about the TED Talk. And my little disclaimer: TED did not allow me to say a lot of things,
Sure.
and that was part of the issue. So if you watch the talk, I was not allowed to give my own theory of what's happening.
I see.
They wouldn't let me. So I quit this process 4 different times, and I got dragged back into it, saying, "Trust me." Like the TED Talk, they give you 18 minutes. They told me you have 16 minutes to get out there
Yeah.
and say what you have to say. And I know that this is going to be like on a YouTube, and it's going to define my life, because anyone Googles me, it's going to show up.
Right.
So I better not get it wrong. So in a weird way, it's somewhat scripted. And what you see on this TED Talk was, I think, draft 27.
Wow.
And the first 26 literally were thrown away.
Wow.
Some by the TED people, some by some advisors I had who said, you can't get on there and say this. You can't say that. You can't prove that.
Right.
I'm like, well, I prove it every day. Well, you can't prove it on TED.
Yeah.
Like it's so when discussing what it is I actually do, I always say it depends on who I'm talking to.
Right.
You know, if I have a nice scientist, quantum physicist on my table, we're going to have a really cool discussion.
Sure.
If I have like a yoga instructor, we're going to have a cool discussion. If I have a very linear thinking, blue suit, red tie, Wall Street guy, the session and what's going on may be very different.
Yeah.
There are some clients who get on my table and they're like, I don't really care to know what you're doing. Just get rid of this problem I have. I don't care. Just fix it.
Yeah.
You don't need to tell me anything. Like,
Yeah.
I trust you. And some people, again, will lay on my table and ask me a million questions when I'm working.
Yeah.
And again, how I answer those questions just depends on who you are.
Of course. Yeah.
And a lot of it is just, in a way, what I think is happening.
Sure.
There was in the TED Talk, one of my favorite lines. I worked on a woman, and I don't know if I actually gave the backstory, that there was a doctor who wanted me to treat this person so that we could get some scientific research. She's a famous researcher out of Australia, and she was here on sabbatical, and she was invited to have a session by me and give very specific feedback that we might be able to use for the talk. And I was very excited to work with her. And we had about 10 people in the room, all physicians and very intelligent people. And they gathered around, and I worked on her for 15 minutes. And she told me she had a problem in her upper back. That was her main complaint. And I told her hips weren't right. And I did a few things in what I call a reboot of a system. And within 15 minutes, her hip was moving so perfectly that she sat up and she says, hold on a minute. And she went in the corner. And I'll never forget it. She went in the corner, faced the wall, and closed her eyes in a way and just sat there. And everyone in the room was looking at her like, what's going on here? Like, what is she doing? And then one of the doctors asked her a question, and she went like, shh, I'm formulating. And we were all like, okay, what does that mean? And then she turned around and she goes, I felt you tap into my nervous system. And she's a physicist.
Right.
She's a mathematician, physicist, PhD. I mean, she had something to do with some kind of mathematical formula for string theory. So I mean, she's a pretty sharp lady.
Yeah.
She said, I felt you tap into my nervous system. I don't know what happened, but I haven't been able to sit like this with my legs crossed like this since I was 6. And I don't know what happened. And she turned around and she goes, perhaps this is operating under rules of science that have not yet been developed. And she says, I think we're about 20 years away from coming up with words to describe what just happened to me.
Wow.
And I said, can I use that for the talk? And she said, no. So, that was the end of that. And I did use a little bit of that story in the talk, just because that line has always stuck with me. Perhaps this is operating under rules of science. Because at this point in where we are as a scientific world, we can't explain human vibration and wave transfer between people.
Right.
We can't measure it. We don't have words to explain wave theory. There's a wonderful book I just read about a colleague of mine, which is probably the reason I met you, because his wife was a ballroom dancer.
Indeed. Yeah.
And he's a brilliant man. He wrote his own book.
Yes.
I can give him a plug, I guess. The Nature of Nature.
Yeah.
Where he explains wave theory.
Right.
Irving Dardick.
Yeah.
Fascinating man. But the book gets into a lot of fascinating theory. Start at chapter 9, because the first part is, you'll be sleeping in 3 seconds, unless you're a really cool scientist. But it's a phenomenal book, and it tries to put into words how waves affect the body. And when he saw me work, the first thing he said is, do you even know what you're doing? And I went into my whole spiel about, okay, here's what I'm doing. And he said, no, let me explain to you. You're making waves in a body. And I was like, yeah, I am. And he goes, no, let me explain to you scientifically what you're doing. And here's a man who's a quantum physicist. I mean, he's
Right.
a brilliant man. He was the head of the United States Olympic Medical Committee for 2 Olympic Games, and has numerous patents under his name that they're still being used today in vascular surgery. I mean, he's no joke. He said, let me explain this to you. Come to my house tomorrow, 9 a.m. And I went to his house probably every day, or maybe 3 to 4 times a week for the next 2 years, to discuss waves and theories. And we worked on a lot of clients together where he would have some people with some very serious diseases, and I would work on them, and then he would do his thing, and we would watch their symptoms disappear. And it was so fascinating. Really, really cool stuff. But that kind of helped me define, in a way, in better detail, what I'm doing. Now,
Yeah.
that man was there's a long history behind him, and they took away his medical license, and they, he had a bunch of run-ins with the medical board, and I'm trying to avoid those things.
Right.
So,
Right.
I don't talk about what I do that much in detail to, shall we say, go against anything that is in modern medicine.
Heaven forbid, right?
Just easier.
Well, and that is, I mean, I was one of his test subjects from the ballroom area,
Yeah.
and that was kind of how I got in, and they hooked me up to the heart monitors and all the stuff.
Terrific stuff.
They were just fascinated with what I was doing at the time in my younger days, and it was so cool, the stuff. And that is how we connected way back when. But
Yeah.
I from the minute we met, I mean, I even got to watch you work on, I think we went to visit the 76ers, the basketball team. And I just watched you just do some amazing things with those players. And it was incredible, and I'm going to have to go pick up that book and check it out. But so tell me, I want to dig into like your backstory a bit, and I'm sure we've fascinated everybody sufficiently, and I'd like to kind of get to the point of how in the heck did you get into this? Like, what? Okay, so you've had Reactivate Me and reactivation for 18, 20 years, but before that, what the heck led you to this point?
So I graduated with a degree in biomechanics and exercise science. So I was studying the body linearly. I come from a very linear background. My father is a pharmacist. My mother was an organizational space planner and teacher. So everything in my world was either take a pill or here's the problem, let's solve it linearly. Like, here's the steps, and this is what we're going to do. And that's been my world, or was my world, forever and ever. Now, I was always maybe a little bit different. I always had this thing in my head where, I mean, this is, we're talking back when I was probably in my kindergarten years, that I had this feeling of intention, like this intuition, this manifesting, which has become sort of, I guess when the book The Secret came out, it became this big catchphrase, and everyone kind of took it all over. And now there's probably hundreds and thousands of podcasts about manifesting. And like, I was doing this and not even knowing what I was doing. But it was one of those things in my world where I almost trusted the universe. And when I thought of something and I wanted something to happen, it would happen.
Right.
And I always say, you got to be careful for what you wish for, because I could give you lots of stories about things I wish for that happened, but maybe not in the way I thought they were going to happen.
Right.
But so having that growing up, I was always sort of fascinated by that, about making things happen. So after college, I had sort of lost a job because it wasn't necessarily meant to be. And I ended up moving back home right after school and working at the local health club. And they said, oh, you should try this new field called personal training. It's a good way to make money. They were paying me, peanuts. And they said, well, you can double your salary if you get into this personal training. It's this new thing we're trying here at the club. And again, with my degree in exercise science, they said, here's the book. You can go take this test and become certified. So I did. I didn't necessarily have to read the book. I had a degree in this stuff, and it was pretty easy for me. And my mother was like, you're doing what? You're teaching people how to exercise? Like, back in 1992, 91, there were no personal trainers like there are now. Everybody can be a personal trainer now.
Right.
you lift some weights and you go to a gym and you look the part, you can be a trainer. But I kind of took it to extremes because this was, okay, this is going to be my world. And I realized, wow, you know what? I can make a pretty good living out of this. So I moved to New Jersey from New York State, and I got a job at a personal training facility that was paying me peanuts. And I ended up doing a lot of private training on my own. And I'm one of these people that I like to read a lot. At the time I was probably reading, 2 to 3 books a week, just about training and exercise and fitness. And I had probably every single certification under the sun that was out there, from being able to a pre and postnatal personal trainer to the certified strength and conditioning specialist. So I could work with Olympic athletes and their moms or and their wives who were pregnant,
Right.
I could do all these different things based on all the certifications I was getting. And it was like, I was like, wow, you know what? This is pretty cool. And I had this side business besides at the job I had. And I realized, wow, I'm making so much more money on the side. But I was working 6 a.m., 5:45 was my first client. I wouldn't get home till 10 at night, 6 days a week.
Wow.
And I was hustling and I loved it. I couldn't get enough of it. But I was doing my own training and strongman competitions and running a marathon and biking 100-mile races and just pushing my body to the limits. And I spent, I think it was probably a year into my personal training that I ended up with neck pain to the point where I couldn't turn my head to the right for 8 years. And I tried, believe me, I went to physical therapy. I probably had 15 physical therapists. I would spend any free hour I had on my lunch break. I'd go to the physical therapist down the street or in the next town. Or I tried 25 chiropractors. I tried massage therapists. I tried acupuncturists. Anybody who said, "Oh, you got to try this guy. You got to try my friend." I was there because I couldn't turn my head. I would go home every night at 10 o'clock and eat my dinner, hanging my head on a home traction unit on the door.
Oh my gosh.
Trying to get my neck to loosen up. I'd walk around doing this all day long because my neck was so tight. And it was not a pleasant feeling. And nothing helped me, honestly. Everything kind of made me worse. And I was probably 27 years old. So we were talking, it was probably maybe 97.
Wow.
Where I was in Oklahoma City taking a cadaver anatomy class and a physics and a cadaver anatomy and human movement physics class in the gym. So we'd go in the morning and we'd cut open bodies and look at how the muscles pulled, and it was really fascinating.
Right.
And in the afternoon and do these movements like pull downs and do things and see, okay, well, that's how the muscle attaches and that's how it pulls. And here's the moment arm and here's the force vector and looking at how the body moves, again, linearly.
Right.
Brilliant work. Fascinating class. But the problem was I was such a wreck at the time from all the exercise that I was doing that at the time I couldn't open a bottle of water. My elbows were so inflamed from doing Olympic lifting power cleans.
Sure.
And this position just killed my elbow. I had tennis elbow without playing tennis, both sides, and I literally couldn't pick up a mug at times. My neck was throbbing. My low back was sore. My shoulders, were rotator cuff, I probably had tendonitis and of the rotator cuff and bicep tendon. I was a wreck. I was just a wreck. But this man in the class, and I'll never forget, his name is Lou, and I heard he doesn't have a phone, he doesn't have an email, and this goes back years. I mean, who knows? I think he lives in a cave for all I know.
Right.
And he's that kind of guy. But he took me and he did a few things on my elbow, and I went like, I feel so much better. What the heck did you do? And literally, my elbow was better. I was blown away. And he said, well, I'm learning from this technique, and I'm learning from these guys in Colorado. So I called Colorado, and I said, I got to learn. And he said, you're in, fly out, pay me this large sum of money and fly out every month for a year, and I'll teach you. So I did.
Wow.
And as that class was going on, I'm a very skeptical guy, which I still am to this day. I don't even believe the work I do half the time. I'm constantly trying to disprove myself, Michael.
Right.
I spend my days literally saying, all right, if I do this, I wonder if this is going to work. And that's how I work. I want to disprove theories. I've always been a skeptical person. So I was out there and I was like, well, it fixed me. So this stuff's got to work. but I realized that everything this man was teaching me was wrong. And I'm not saying it didn't work.
Right.
I'm saying it was invalid
Right.
in the thought process of what he's actually doing. Because I did his work completely backwards, completely opposite, totally different, and got the same result.
Mm.
When I went to
Wow.
him, and again, I started to ask questions and stuff, and
Of course.
I also realized that he plagiarized his whole manual, which he didn't like when I brought that up. But I went nicely and said, "Can you explain this to me? Why I'm doing this?" And he said, "Get out," and they never talked to me again.
Oh no.
Well, I was a threat to the empire
Sure.
because I can disprove his whole course.
Right.
And quite honestly, I had about 25 to 30 of his students come to me at one point for a small class, and they all walked away going, "What?" They were so pissed off that they paid them all this money for something, and I said, He was close,
Right.
but he made a wrong turn.
Right.
And I'm not saying that the wrong turn was horrific, because it still got the right results. But what he thought he was doing and what was actually happening were totally different.
Yeah.
Totally different. And I can prove it.
Wow.
And I've been proving it ever since. So in a weird way, like, that took me down this road that once I started doing that, I went back and I taught my friend how to do this. I showed him my new technique, and he worked on me, and my neck was better. I mean, I got full motion.
Sure.
Pretty good. Now, I've seen my MRIs. I mean, I did some damage, probably squatting and putting weights on I have 2 degenerative discs. I have horrific bone spurs in my neck, but I'm pretty much pain-free, and I can live a pretty good life without having any issues, and I don't have to hang myself in the door.
Right.
So that's sort of the short of it, of what led me down this path was, and then from there, I started asking a million questions. And again, it's that manifesting. I would put it in my head going, I need to understand something. I need to understand something. And the next day, I had a client in who said, "Oh, you should, my cousin does this, and he wrote this book." And I was like, "That's fascinating." And I got the book, and I was like, that led me down another path of understanding a different type. And then that led me, and then that led me, and then that led me. And then one day, again, I worked on somebody who said, "My aunt is always hurting. You should work on her." And I worked on her, and she said, "Oh my gosh, my dance teacher would love this." And that went down that pathway, and then it went on and on and on and on.
Wow. That's crazy.
And again, 35,000 clients I've never advertised.
Wow.
Not once. It's always a fun thing when people call me and I say, "Well, you never would have heard about me unless someone told you."
Yeah.
I don't do this is you were my first podcast. Well, I take that back. I did a Sirius satellite radio show once.
Oh,
which was really fun. That's on my website as well.
nice.
With Judith Regan. That was a fun talk. And she was like, "You got to heal me on the air." And that's how I met her. She was like, we had a mutual friend who said I should do this. And I said, yeah, sure. Let's work right now. She's like, no, come on the air and fix me on the air.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Sure.
But again, it's one of those things that I'm always very careful on what I say.
Of course.
About what I do.
Right.
And going on like a serious radio show, I don't know who's listening.
Right.
And, I don't need to knock on my door saying that you are practicing medicine without a license and you're doing physical therapy without a license. And I have a license for body work. The state of New Jersey now has a license, and it's a national thing. So I have a license to do body work.
Sure.
Even though I don't massage, I don't manipulate, I don't crack, I don't deep tissue. People are clothed. I don't use oils or creams. You can just lay there or sit in a chair and I can work on you. It's simple and nothing hurts, and it's basic. But I'm always in a way careful of what I say, just because I don't need to go down that road.
Sure. And it's it blew me away just some of the things, because I remember you saying, "Well, this isn't a massage," and I was like, "Okay, what are you gonna do?"
I love when people come in and they have no clue.
Yeah.
I just had a high school girl who was in a car accident. She has scoliosis, but she was in a car accident, has severe whiplash, and her grandmother brought her in, and she lay there. She's like, "What's gonna happen?" She was like, "Grandma didn't tell you?" And the grandma sitting over in the corner says, "I didn't say a word. I wanted to see her face."
Yeah.
And sometimes I wish like people think I'm totally playing with them because of all the things like when I'm working and talking to a body and they can't do things and they can do things and they're like, wow, that hurts. And then 2 minutes later they do it and they're like, wow, how come that doesn't hurt? I really wish I had like a camera like right above and they like we had that great, we have live feed of people's facial expressions.
Yeah. I I'm not usually at a loss for words. So people that listen to my podcast are going to be like, wait, what, why does he keep stumbling over his words? And it's because literally you just, recently I said you worked on my wife and I knew you were going to do what we
Are you going to go down that road, Michael? Are we going to go down that road of how this happened with your wife? Do we want to do that on this? Is that a whole other episode?
we can. And but the thing is like the day after I was like, and she's like, well, I'm not sure. And then the next day she was like back to normal. And I was like, this is amazing. 20 years of this challenge that she's dealt with. And
again, people listening to this, if they don't know what's going on,
yeah.
It's going to sound really weird.
It really would.
But yes, so we'll throw the cat out of the bag a little bit.
Okay.
I can do this. I don't advertise this.
Right.
I can do this work remotely, meaning I can work on anybody in the world right here from my house in New Jersey. I don't need to touch. I can do it via waves and energy, the same way you can watch a tennis match live from Australia in your living room. And as someone serves an ace, it's literally live on the TV right there, within half a second. I can send my waves anywhere and make somebody better.
Yeah.
So that's what we're talking about with your wife, is that she did not fly to New Jersey.
Nope.
And lay on my table.
Yeah.
I like to work directly, but yes, it's another aspect of my work where I can tune into anybody and work remotely.
And I'll tell you, I'm not going to lie. I knew what you could do having worked with you in person, and doing that remotely. I was like, come on. Oh yeah. But
I heard it in your voice. I know.
But I'm a believer.
So I don't really advertise that part because my work, when someone experiences it directly, is pretty far out there.
Yeah.
Like people have no clue what the heck's going on, and wow, how come I can do this, or why is my body like able to now turn my head when I couldn't do it for 2 years?
Yeah.
And they have all these questions. To tell someone that you can like work on them where they're in California and I'm on the other coast really makes their head explode in a way. So for most people, I don't go there.
Yeah. Sure.
I got a lot of that business when I worked on, again, I don't do a lot of getting out there and making myself public. I like to kind of be, under the radar, shall we say. Right. But I worked on one of the Housewives of New Jersey television show, and she was so blown away and had such a phenomenal response that she felt the need to tell the world, and she wanted her session done on live on Instagram. So we did the hour session on Instagram, and then I worked on her husband like a couple weeks later on Instagram.
Sure.
And she's got a couple 400,000, 500,000 followers, some crazy number, and my phone and Instagram and email blew up.
Of course. And
everybody wanted sessions from wherever they were in the world.
Yeah.
I had some people fly in, and we had some awesome sessions here, but a lot of them just said, because the woman said, yes, you can do this. And it was out, the cat was out of the bag again. And there I was treating people from all over the world.
Right. That's
from
crazy.
My house.
It's amazing. You have done a bunch of trainings, and you've worked with a lot of people to teach people how to do this. And do you do that anymore? You did that for a while. What's the status in that department?
The status is it's on hold. Mm-hmm. The teaching is on hold right now, not because of COVID, but because of maybe a different business model I'm looking at going forward with some people who. I've always said that I'm a research and development guy.
Right.
I'm not a businessman.
Right.
If I were a businessman, maybe you would have heard about me, and I'd have offices in every city in the country and or in the world, and reactivation would be a household name.
Sure.
I don't like that stuff. Honestly, I've watched enough maybe Shark Tank episodes to say, I'm willing to give up 10% of my company for whatever, but you're going to have to run the business end of it because I don't want to do it.
Right. Right.
So in a weird way, I found some guys that are interested in that, and they want, pre-COVID, we were ready to go
Yeah.
and take this. And we had our first city we were ready to open up and get ready. And then this kind of hit, and it put a hold on some things, and we're now revisiting. But the teaching was going to be a little bit different.
Sure.
Of who I was going to teach and for what purpose and again, well, for the purpose of setting up clinics all over the place.
Sure.
So me teaching kind of the random person who just wants to have their own business, those days are kind of over, probably.
Right.
For now.
For now.
For now, who knows? But it sort of brings up an interesting point about this work, and that's why I didn't want to make my name on it. It's not the Andy technique, or it's not about me. I know there's a lot of so-called healers out there who want to be known as just the guy, and that, I'm going to see this healer, and I don't really like that. I try to make it more about the technique because I can teach it to people. I'm very selective on who I teach. I've learned a lot of lessons about teaching this to people who can do the technique really well, but don't have the energy and the what I'm looking for inside to transfer that wave to someone else to make them better.
Right.
So, there's a consciousness, there's a love, there's a deep, high vibration in someone's body that you have to have. Like, you can't jumpstart a car when you have a dead battery yourself.
Right.
So I need to teach people. Again, I made that mistake pretty early on. I taught a bunch of people who were really good at this technique, but didn't get the results. They can do the work. And that's why I always say, it's not always about the technique. It's sort of a paradox. My first day of teaching, I would always tell my students, all right, today's the day we start. I'm going to teach you this amazing technique. But if you do it wrong, it's okay. Because it's not about the technique, which is so strange to hear from a teacher, right? I mean,
right.
You go into like a math class and say, well, I'm going to teach you how to do math, but if you do it wrong, it's okay. If you add and you should have subtracted, if you multiply and you should have divided, it's okay.
Right.
In my world, it's okay.
Sure.
If you don't know the short head from the long head of the bicep and you touch a point that's off, it's okay. As long as you got it here and you got it here.
Right.
The energy is going to go wherever you're thinking.
Oh, yeah.
So, that's the manifesting. That's just the thought process of being able to say, here's where my energy is headed, and you're thinking of it. And as long as you have that strong vibration in your body, you can make a change in someone else.
Sure.
And we know that. Go ahead.
Well, what have you found in your time working through this? I mean, you're talking a lot about bodies and getting the body to heal itself. And, I spend my time working in the mindset realm, and, a lot of the things like manifestation and talking about waves, from my days with Irv and that type of thing. There's a whole element of mindset that people want absolute techniques, like tell me what to do, like step 1, step 2.
Always.
And there are some things that it's like, okay, it's not that. That will work, but like you said, you could do that wrong and it might still work, or you could do it right and it might not still work, or it might still be broken. So what have you found with what you're doing that sort of applies to the mindset side of things?
Well, that's a I'm not sure where we're going with that question, because I got a bunch of different answers on where we want to go down that road.
Wherever you'd like.
Wherever I'd like.
I'm with you.
So my mindset. Well, first, let's say that when I'm working on someone, I like to say reactivation is very comprehensive.
Sure.
That I look at muscles.
Sure.
I look at ligaments, I look at glands, I look at brain pathways, I look at the nervous system, I can look at the meridian system, I can look at chakras, I can look at emotional blocks, deep emotional blocks. If there's something that emotionally is causing your body to weaken, I can fix everything relating to your hips, and you still are going to have pain, because every time that emotion comes up, it weakens your body.
Right.
So depending on where I don't always do that in the first session, because it's kind of a little bit maybe out there too.
Right.
But it's very powerful. I had entire professional hockey team come to me because they wanted me to do the word chart, the emotional chart that I created. And they were like, oh, I don't care about my back or my knee or my shoulder. Just fix my word, find my emotional problem. They loved it. And quite honestly, they went to the Stanley Cup Finals that year.
Yeah.
Very cool stuff. But that's the word spread through the team that I can help them with their emotional dysfunctions.
Sure. Sure.
So, we can go down that road, but what I find, again, there's no absolutes when it comes to like the mental side of it. People ask me all the time, like, oh, do I need to be a believer? Like, what if I'm a skeptic? Is that going to change your work? If I'm laying here thinking this is such garbage, I cannot believe my mother is making me do this.
Right.
Is it going to change the outcome? And I will say, absolutely not. I'll overpower you. I don't care.
Yeah.
There's something about the word permission that is everything to me. And we've talked, I don't know if we've ever gone down that road together and had that conversation about permission. Maybe when talking about doing a session on your wife, I said, I just need her permission.
Right.
Because I can't enter a body energetically unless I have permission.
Right.
And I firmly believe, based on waves and vibrations, that our bodies have its own firewall. That how like a virus can enter a computer.
Sure.
And you have this fancy virus protection system that blocks it when it comes in from an email, and it can take it and block it so it won't damage your system. I firmly believe that our mental state, our emotion, our thought process can block germs, viruses. They can block it. I used to hear we'll have this conversation maybe pre-COVID, when I used to have teachers that would come in and say, I hate going back to school in September because my kids always get me sick. Right? We've heard that a million times from all these teachers. Right. The kids are always sneezing and sore throats, and I always get sick when I have to go back to school. And all that is like permission to, okay, my body's open, kids, give me your germs. There's always those people who walk into a room and say, I don't get sick. I'm not getting sick. And guess what? They don't get sick.
Yeah.
Because when you say, oh, my kids always get me sick, it's almost an opening.
Right.
So it's that permission. I'm giving you permission, germs, to enter my body, versus I don't get sick. I'm not getting sick.
Right.
And now there's also, sometimes where we can't control that because our body is so broken that the mind can't handle
right.
the power. Like the power of the mind can't handle some other things.
Right.
Like if you're not sleeping well, you're not eating well, you're not taking care of yourself, and you walk in that room, you still may get sick because your body's immune system is just depleted. And mentally isn't going to help you.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense. That's
Did that answer the question?
As usual, you have me speechless. It's not good for a podcast host to be speechless.
It's one of those things. Again, when I started doing a few more talks, there was this doctor.
Sure.
Who wanted me to get out and do a lot more talks. She would have me lecturing at the hospital in front of all of the staff and in the community, and it was so much fun in a way to get out there and do these things. And I love the demonstration part, because I would always pull someone, 3, 4, 5 people out of the audience and just pick up random things and show them things about how our bodies work.
Sure.
And she said to me, you know what? From now on, whenever you do a talk, I highly recommend, and this was right before the TED thing happened, that she said, I want you to do a demonstration in the first 5 minutes of your talk. Because then people would have a better understanding of what you're saying, and they would have a visual of like, okay, now I get it. Because they're going to listen to you talk for the first half an hour, and they're going to be there like going, what the heck is he saying? What is this? This no way. What does he mean? This is all really, really, really? And then you do your demonstration, and it's already kind of like they're out there already. So she always said I should do my demo first. And I started doing that every now and then when I would, do a talk in front of a small group or something.
Right.
I would just pull someone right away and be like, all right, let's get this out of the way right now, so I can talk as I work, and let me just show you what your body's capable of.
Right.
I can prove permission. How many people in this world can prove what permission actually means?
Right. Right.
That I can literally show someone, okay, look, your leg does not do this. Like, you cannot hold your leg up no matter what. I can push this thing. I can push it down with one finger. Like, you can't hold it up. There's no way.
Right.
Now I can make them just say, I don't give you permission to test me. I don't give you permission. And I'll try to push it down and it won't move. They'll be locked.
Yeah.
So as soon as they say, you have my permission, I can push everything right down. And that's a weird thing. It's a weird concept to understand unless you see it.
Yeah.
Like, again, we could talk this conversation all day long. It's not going to mean anything unless someone experienced it.
Right.
And I was telling this lady, the 76-year-old who I got off the phone with earlier this morning, that she's like, I'm such a believer. I want, this has to work. I've tried everything. I've tried everything. This has got to work. I'm going open-minded. And I said, I don't really care if you're open-minded. And I don't really care if you're a believer. And honestly, as long as you give me permission, I'm going to change the wave patterns and I'm going to make things work in your body.
Right.
And at the end of the day, you're just going to judge me by results.
Right.
If you don't feel any better, then you can say, it didn't work. I'm not doing it anymore.
Right.
That's okay.
Right.
No harm, no foul. And there's no negative side effect to what I do.
Sure.
I'm just going to make your body work. And again, there aren't many people in this world who can get the changes like what you see in the TED Talk was a great example. And that's something I do pretty frequently.
Right.
Where I can reset a nervous system and I can give someone 70 degrees of motion in a hip that didn't work before, like the woman we talked about from Australia.
Right.
You can change motion instantly. And now you could spend 8 months in physical therapy and gain 5 degrees of motion in a hip, and I can do it in 3 minutes. I'll give you 80 degrees of motion in a hip without ever touching it or stretching it or moving it. And you could sit there and go, no, how did that just happen?
Sure.
I don't understand.
Sure.
Because when you change the vibrations here and how the brain sends signals to the rest of the body, cool things happen.
Now, it's likely not possible, but maybe it is possible. Do you think there's anything we could do now, just like small, that we could show in the podcast, or is that something that we would have to do a different thing to show something like you would do in the TED Talk?
Yeah, it's probably better that I had somebody, and I can't really show you because I can't test. Like when I work remotely, I usually use like a surrogate, meaning I'll just grab my wife body and I'll just I'll make that, like, it sounds so strange, but I can I can make my wife into your wife.
Yeah, exactly.
Such a random crazy thought, but I can use my wife's body as if I'm working on your wife, and I can make it work.
Sure.
So
makes sense.
if my wife were here at the time, I could grab her and we can have some fun, maybe testing you.
Sure.
But it's one of those things that we can do this again, and if people are interested and they would like to see it, we can do another podcast where I'm set up in front of a table. Okay. And we can just, I'll just find someone who's never met me before in a way, and we'll bring them in and we'll do the talk while, or maybe one of your students or your dancers is in New York or New Jersey, send them my way and we'll have some fun.
Exactly. Cool. Yeah.
It's someone, so someone that I've never met, and we can kind of, see how it goes.
For sure. Well, gosh, I mean, I usually do a lightning round at the end, and like you kind of blown it out of the water, like. But I am curious, actually, just to kind of get in the mind of you and how you deal with your emotional things. I mean, obviously, being a healer and working on everybody else, how do you keep yourself straight? What's the cutoff so that it doesn't get assimilated into what their issues are, getting in their box or getting in their thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, man. It's a really good question. The first is, again, permission. That I know every day when I work on someone, I'm not taking on your stuff.
Right.
It's set in my head. Like I don't have to zip myself up in a white suit. I don't have to, go through the prayers and throw the magic dust on myself and keep my safe. It's a mental, I'm not getting your stuff. Right. It's a knowing. I already know. Sure. When I work, I don't take on anyone's stuff.
Sure.
It's a one-way street. I'm sending mine to you and I'm not taking it back.
Sure.
So it's kind of a funny thing. When I work, my energy gets so high that I almost don't like Sundays or weekends when I don't work, because I
Right.
actually feel better when I work.
Right.
So how do I take care of myself? I work.
Work. Right. Yeah.
Just because it makes my body energy go up.
Sure.
Now I'm also, again, I treat myself. It took me 12 years to figure out how to correct myself.
Cool.
It's very cool. I was in Arizona, actually. I was in Sedona, and I had just done a really cool hike on one of those crazy energetic vortex things. And I don't know if that had anything to do with it. I don't know. But I was taking an outdoor shower on the back porch of this place I was staying at, and all the stars were and it was so cool. And I was like, I got it. It's that shower thing again. Maybe it's the shower thing.
The shower. That's it.
There you go. And I went back in and I grabbed my son and my wife and I said, I got to try something. And it worked. And
Oh my gosh.
it's so I can fix myself.
Nice.
So I give myself a nice tune up at least once a month
Nice.
and make my body feel really good. I would say, like, everyone has this thing like, oh, you need to go meditate and get yourself in this zone.
Yeah.
My version of meditation, and what I tell people about, like, meditation is anything to me that takes your mind away from sort of the chatter.
Sure.
So my meditation, twice a day, 20 minutes a day, I walk the dog.
Nice.
I love it.
Yeah.
You know, that's my cool. My wife doesn't like me in the house when I come back after seeing 8 people in a row, because my energy is so hyper.
Right.
And I've never had caffeine, like, in my life. I've never had a cup of coffee. I wake up like this. I don't need to have that, but I feel like I need to calm down. So I'll come home and I'll grab the dog and I'll talk to the dog on a 20-minute walk, and come back all nice and calm and peaceful. Go take a nice cool shower and get back to my wonderful home life.
All those hot and colds that
The hot and cold shower. Yeah, you know what? Again, I still 4 days a week. I live on a pretty big hill, and I live in an area where there's a lot of really big hills, and I go up and down that hill on my bicycle,
Oh my gosh.
8 times, 4 times a week.
Wow.
So I still firmly believe in making waves.
Yeah.
And that was the original book that was written about her. If people wanted to read the book, that the author's name was Roger Lewin.
Right.
And the book was Making Waves. It was a terrific book about Irv's story. And I spent so much time with Irv and understanding his beliefs about causing health.
Right.
And I really believe that making those waves keeps me really healthy.
Right.
Again, I do that hill. I get to the top, I coast down, and I sit in a chair in my garage for 5 minutes, and I wear my monitor, and I can still get my heart rate up to, 168, 170. I just turned 50 a couple months ago, and I still feel like I'm 20 at times.
Sure.
Yeah. So I believe, yes, those waves help me keep my body pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And treating myself, and
It's crazy. And I took some of the wave principles that Irv taught me as well, and took them into dance, and have been teaching my championship level dancers those waves to help them excel. And it's sort of like a secret weapon, like,
yeah, it's my secret way. It's my secret weapon.
It's
100%.
Yeah, what we could do with them and what we did. And he put me on a heart rate monitor and did all his stuff over the course of a 3-day competition, because he wanted to see what in the world was making it possible for me to get through all of that. I didn't know. I was just going, and so he figured it out. And of course he did all of the background behind it and was like, well, this is what's happening, and this is how you can reproduce it. And this is what you do again. I was like, sick, we're gonna do that. But
he's onto something. There's no doubt he's onto something pretty big with it. And I admire the work that he did. I still talk to him.
Oh yeah.
Every now and then we have some fun conversations about work. He's always very calmly like, you are so far ahead. He's always come whenever I feel down about myself or something. I'll just call Irv, because he'll tell me how great I am.
Funny.
And give me some nice compliments about the work.
Right.
and where we've gone with it.
Yeah.
And again, I still think 18 years later, I'm at the beginning stages.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
still feel like I have a theory. I'll have a number of theories, but this theory about how we need each other to heal, how, there's no reason why, you living in Utah can't, you wake up with a sore back from your dance competition over the weekend, can't go to your wife or your neighbor or your friend and get reactivated and get yourself back to feeling good within a day.
Sure.
There's no reason that it can't be all over the world.
Sure.
And and my goal was always to take this to the masses, and it's been a real, that's I know when we first discussed the podcast, you talked about maybe the business ends of it and talking about the business end. We could do that a whole other conversation.
Sure. Yeah.
About the struggles I've had business wise, doing something that is hard to explain and, needs licenses and what you can and can't say. And all the times I've been attacked by, the medical world in a way of telling me what I can and can't do. And at the end, so that's where I kind of I just keep it simple.
Yeah.
I don't need to have lots of employees, and I don't want to sit and look at charts all day on my computer about, well, what the the Salt Lake office is doing this week and how, and who's running it there, and someone's out sick, and that, I want to be hands-on. I want to work. I don't want to sit in front of a computer and run the business ends of it.
Sure.
But I like doing the work. I want research and development. And I want to teach. I want to teach this to the masses.
Absolutely.
And again, teaching it to the masses gets a little bit more complicated too.
Sure. Right.
So we'll see. We're working on it. Work in progress.
Well, we have some more conversations to have, and and we'll do that along the way. Maybe we'll turn this one into a series. It'll be awesome. And I'd love to hear everybody's comments and reach out and let me know what you thought of the episode. And of course, you can find Andy. We're going to put his website and the TED Talk in the description below. You'll find it on the page wherever you're watching or listening to this podcast. And we are excited just to be able to share Andy with you. Andy, thank you so much for coming.
Oh, it was great.
And
it was great.
Being vulnerable, sharing with us your story, sharing with us what it's all about. And thank you so much for what you've done for my family and my career. Oh my gosh, I can't even begin to thank you enough. You're amazing. Your work is awesome. And I just keep going because it's just incredible what you're doing. And I hope everybody goes and listens and watches and starts to take part in what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Michael.
All right, thanks.
Greatly appreciate it.
Hey, lifers, don't forget to get your free copy of the Every Minute book. You can find it at everyminutebook.com. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram.